Welcome back to the Crossroad Diner, that place where your spirit goes when you know it's time to change direction. We decided to hit record because we were doing some really good stuff. Steve McCurdy here, John Burnett. You're in the Crossroad Diner on Coaching Monday. We are going through the process of creating your MVP, your mission, vision, and plan for the who you are, what you're going to do. We're going to talk about identities. Identities is a really simple way, a really clean way to put some of this into practice. What we did last week was we talked about the first personal parts of your vision, about your spirituality, or how your spiritual needs are met, physical, and also mental. Today, we're going to talk about the outward expressions of that. John, what are those three?
Yeah. So it's great. The outward expression is really the external space I identify as missional. So what we do, think about it as how we serve the world, right? So what it looks like when you're living on mission, that's what vision is, what that looks like from a service standpoint. That may be your vocation, that may be your place of volunteerism, that kind of thing. Then relational. So how we relate to the world from a standpoint that includes friends, family, that kind of thing. And then financial, kind of what we do, what our vision is for how we interact with the world financially.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are, if you think about it, the first three, spiritual, mental, and physical, are really about us. But if we take care of ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually, we are going to be in a better place to then do the next piece, which is the missional, relational, and financial. It's going to be really hard for us to do some of the relational things if we haven't taken care of ourselves physically. And there's a lot of research around how taking care of our minds throughout our entire life sets us up for greater mental success as we get older. There's a lot of research around that. So think about if we help ourselves mentally, then how we relate to others and how we serve through our missional, through our occupation, whatever, are going to be greatly enhanced by how we take care of the internal side. So it's a whole person thing.
Yeah. The other thing you and I talked about was this notion of identities. People can get lost in the identity thing, but all of us have a series of identities based on what we're talking about. For instance, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm a father. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm a grandfather. And I am a teacher. I am a counselor. I am a coach. I'm all of those things. And when I'm in one of those identities, I'm looking at the world through a specific lens. And you've got a great list of your six. And I think it helps understand the concept a lot better. Walk us through your six identities as relates to your vision.
Yeah, it's good to always go back to mission, by the way, because why we exist should feed and filter our vision. So if you
Right.
think of my mission is to passionately inspire others to more of what God created them for. My vision is what that looks like when I'm living on mission. Literally, vision looks like it's from a spiritual standpoint. I have attached myself, and this is brand new. I have attached the identity of a wrestler. So in the last couple of years, I have shifted from really being someone who is very set on knowing the truth, and it would probably be my spiritual vision was to know the truth, to wrestling with the truth. So I call myself a wrestler. That is a spiritual position where I have specifically come up with that word that takes me out of having to know, because I believe there's a lot of things I will just never know, right? But I want to wrestle with those things. I don't want to say, I don't really understand how, let's see, science and the Bible mesh, for instance. So I'm just going to choose one of those and just know that's true. The Bible says that I believe that settles it. I used to be that guy. I'm not that guy now. I'm a guy that goes, okay, let's wrestle with these truths. Let's wrestle
Okay.
with help, because I do believe the greater I have learned about science, and even just, for instance, the science of how I'm made, the greater my faith has grown in a creator that made me in this intricate way that can think these things or do these things and change throughout my life. So my vision in the spiritual area is as a wrestler. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I like it because it's more open. It's not saying that I'm going to know definitively now and forever, but I'm going to be open to expanding that idea and expanding and growing to be able to accommodate more truth. So, if
Yeah.
that's the case, what is your identity relating to mental?
Yeah. So in the mental area, I've identified, and by the way, this is just jump, right? Your spiritual identity may be completely different. Mine used to be, and this is ongoing. Mine will very possibly be completely different in a year as I continue to grow and evolve my thought process. It used to be a studier. I was a studier was the word that I used. And in
Okay.
the mental, though, it is a learner. And this is a term that I came up with just from a pure standpoint of, again, I've been humbled a lot in my life from my mistakes and exposure of those mistakes and that kind of thing. The idea of being a learner
Yeah.
is I never want to stop growing mentally. And so that's a position again. Hopefully it's humbled me a little bit to be someone who continues to have an open mind to understand versus a definitive mind that says, "Hey, I believe this, so I'm going to judge you for that." No, I want to understand. I want to be curious. So I'm a learner. In fact, curiosity might be where I
Okay.
evolve that word in the future, right? But learner. Yeah.
Okay. That's it for spiritual and mental. And so physical.
Physical is a funny one because I've got some very specific kind of identities that are a little bit deeper in the MVP by attached to the plan. But at the vision level, I use the word trainer. And it feels like a weird word because, and it'll probably change over time, but I've just settled on that word because I want to continue training my body to act the way I wanted to act. And so that requires some very specific actions on my part to train my body, to train it instead of just floating through life. It's not being a trainer of others. It's that word is very personal, and that's the mission, vision, plan.
Uh,
These are very personal things. So it's the idea of being a trainer of my own body. So that's where I'm at on the physical. And again, these words are personal to you.
but I think it's important that we give everybody examples so when they look at their own, they have a model to follow, not to copy. Let's go move into the second half. What are your identities there?
Yeah. So the next one is missional. And missional is oftentimes we think of missional as being the thing where I live out my mission in my vocation. And that is a very direct tie. That is what we are doing out in the world is an expression of our why we exist, of our mission statement. So that's why I use the word missional. For me, missionally, I get really tight into my purpose statement, my mission statement. And I say that I am an inspirer. I am an inspiration. Those are the two words that I'll put in there. I write these out every morning to help me put pen to paper on this is why I'm here today. And this is where I'm headed. So missionally, I say that I am an inspirer. I am an inspiration. And that is something kind of key to note as when you talk about identity is it is I am statements. I am a wrestler of truth. I am a lifelong learner. I am a trainer of my body. I am an inspirer of others. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Keep going.
Yeah. So then on the next one, it's relational. And so you think about just this is literally how you relate to others in the world through family, friends, your community, your clients. So from a relational standpoint, this is one that it's another one that might sound a little bit funny, but it's where I've landed because of just history is I want to be a lover. And when I say lover, I'm not talking in a romantic sense. I'm talking about a lover of God and others. And in my belief system, the best way for me to love God is to love others, his creation. And
Sure.
the to put myself in the best position to love others well, I love God. And so it is a combination, but that word, and it goes back to the words of Jesus, where when the Pharisees were basically trying to trick him, and they said, "What's the most important law? What's the most important commandment, 10 commandments?" And he said, basically, love God and love others. Everything else hangs on this. And so I don't need to worry about judging other people. If I love God and love others, everything else will take care of itself. I don't need to be their judge and jury. I'm called to love them. And so that's where being a lover is my word relationally. That's the identity I want. You think about what did you want on your tombstone when you're dead? If it said John loved others
Yeah.
well, or he loved God and others, I'd be a happy camper.
I've got a wonderful pastor friend who, when asked about, aren't we called to point out the flaws of others? And he says, I'm in marketing. I'm not in quality control. He said, I'm trying to get people on the team. I'm going to leave that to other people.
But by the way, that reminds me, Andy Stanley used to say, I've never argued someone to faith, but I've loved quite a few people there. So same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the financial realm, the word I use there, the identity I take on is I am a giver. And when you think about finances, it is more than just money. It is time, talents, and resources. Talents and time can fall into some of these other areas, specifically missionally. I do a lot of volunteering and led over 15 mission trips to Central America back in the day. And that was very much tied into inspiring others, but there was no money tied to it. So some of these might look like they could fall in either category. But the idea behind finances is I want to always have a giving element tied to my money. I want to make sure that it is not all John focused. I also have moved past a more legalistic approach of specific percentages. I believe in the direct correlation between giving and gratitude, giving and health, giving and feeling worthwhile. People come to the end of their lives and they regret having not served more, give more, spent more time with people. So this idea of being a giver is really a key identity for me. And maybe a really good time to kind of look back and say, these are 6 areas of our lives that I love to encourage people to cast vision for. In doing that, create some identities around each one. But then also in everything we do, give ourselves grace. So I will say right now that giving at times in my life was such a legalistic, even almost a forced thing. Like I am going to be a giver in a prideful thing, that I've had to give myself some grace and let go and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to hold it, everything in my life, with my hands wide open and trusting that everything's going to be okay. And so as a giver, I try to do it with hands wide open, not with the sense of fear and not with the sense of judgment, just to, hey, you know what? Sometimes I'm in a space where financially it doesn't look like as much as it used to. And so that's okay. That's all right. There'll be other times when it's more, and that's okay too. I don't need to make any judgments or feel more pride in either case.
What we're doing here is giving you frameworks. And in the show notes, there are all these tools for going about looking at that. What John and I want to do is also make you an offer to help you really go in depth on this in a kind of a one-on-one coaching environment. And we're going to put together a package. We'll have details on the downloads so that you can reach out to us and go through a process that customizes this to you. And it also introduces you to us as coaches in a little toe in the water kind of way, a finite period of time and a finite set of goals that can get you launched. If you don't need help to work through these things, fine. But if you do, we're going to put together a little offer that can be reachable, attainable, and like I say, toe in the water. You had some more things to say about that, John?
Yeah, no, I'm just excited about it. Next week, we'll talk about the plan. And so that'll be the next step in the process of MVP, and where really the rubber meets the road. So mission is that internal thing that doesn't change. Vision is what it looks like when you're living on mission, that as you go through life, that will change, but it's still in the very big picture. Now we're going to move to a plan where we really take those ideas into very actionable identities and tasks at the plan level.
So we've talked to you about being, but we also are now talking about learning how to have your being turn into your doing, into the day-to-day. We're going to be working on plan the next week or two. We'll be right here with you on Mondays to open that up to you. So until next week, John Burnett, Steve McCurdy, we will meet you right here in the coaching booth next time in the Crossroad Diner. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode of the Crossroad Diner. We'll come to you each week with Monday releases of Crossroad Diner coaching and Thursday releases of Crossroad Diner case studies of people from all walks of life. who have learned to manage the change of their direction with the help of the Crossroad Diner. See you next week.